It was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life, the moment she walked toward the man she loved. But before she could take even one step, a German shepherd suddenly appeared in the aisle, her police dog, her loyal K9 partner, Shadow. He stood firm, eyes locked on her, muscles tense, refusing to let her move forward. Guests gasped. Some rose from their seats, unsure whether this was a joke or a disaster unfolding in real time. Emma tried to call his name, but Shadow growled, low and warning, a sound she had never heard from him before. People whispered in shock. Is he attacking the bride? What is he sensing? Then she saw it in his eyes. Fear, urgency, desperation. And in that moment, Emma knew. This wasn't a wedding interruption. This was a warning that would expose a truth capable of destroying everything. Stay with us, because this story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious. Where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning sun painted warm golden stripes across Emma's bedroom as she stood before the mirror, fingers trembling with excitement. Today was the day, her wedding day. The white dress hung beside her, glowing softly in the light, almost as if it were breathing with her. Her heart fluttered as bridesmaids buzzed around, fixing curls, adjusting flowers, teasing her gently about finally finding her fairy tale ending. But through the laughter and perfume-scented air, something felt off. Shadow, her loyal police K9 partner, sat in the corner of the room, his typically steady gaze shifting restlessly. His ears twitched at every sound. His breathing was heavier than usual. He wasn't whining, wasn't pacing, yet Emma sensed the tension coiled beneath his fur like a drawn bowstring. "Shadow," she called softly, stepping toward him. On any other day, he would have lifted his head with calm, obedient acknowledgement. Today, he stood immediately, rigid, alert, eyes fixed on her as if trying to communicate something he didn't have the words for. Emma smiled nervously. "You're acting like you're the one getting married." The bridesmaids chuckled, but Shadow didn't. His tail didn't wag. His posture didn't relax. He simply stared. As makeup artists finished their work and photographers captured glowing pre-wedding moments, Emma couldn't shake the feeling growing inside her chest. Shadow had saved her life twice during her years on the force. He had detected explosives she hadn't noticed, sensed danger she couldn't see. But this was her wedding day. There was no danger here. Nothing threatening. Nothing unexpected. Right? When her mother walked in, wiping emotional tears with the corner of her sleeve, Shadow abruptly moved between them, blocking Emma with his body. The room fell silent, the bridesmaids exchanging confused looks. "Emma, why is he doing that?" her mother whispered. "I don't know," Emma admitted, gently stroking his head. His fur was stiff beneath her hand, his muscles hard as stone. "He's been jumpy since morning." Shadow didn't let her mother approach until Emma firmly commanded him. Even then, he obeyed reluctantly, taking only 2 steps back, his eyes never leaving Emma for even a moment. As the morning progressed, Shadow's tension only sharpened. He remained glued to her side, watching every person, every movement, every door. Emma tried to brush it off, blaming nerves, excitement, and the chaos of a big day. But a quiet unease began to nestle itself inside her. Shadow wasn't overprotective. Shadow was warning her, and she had no idea why. Emma tried to focus on the excitement of the day, her dress, the flowers, the gentle chaos of everyone preparing. But Shadow made that impossible. The moment she stood up to step toward the window, he moved with her, keeping his shoulder pressed against her leg as if anchoring her to the floor. "Shadow, sweetheart. I'm okay," she murmured. But he didn't believe her. She could feel it. His ears were perked, nose twitching constantly as if collecting 100 different scents from the air. Every time a bridesmaid entered the room, Shadow positioned himself between Emma and the door, analyzing each person with sharp, intelligent eyes. Even familiar faces made him tense. "Is he nervous?" one bridesmaid asked, clutching a handful of white roses to her chest. "He's never like this," Emma said, trying to smile but failing. "He's the calmest dog on the force." Her words were meant to reassure, yet they tasted hollow in her mouth. She had seen Shadow face armed suspects without flinching, walk through chaotic crime scenes without a tremor of fear. But now, on a quiet morning filled with perfume and wedding chatter, he acted as if danger lurked in every corner. A soft knock came at the door. Shadow snapped his head toward the sound instantly. Ears stiff, muscles coiled. His low growl silenced the room. "It's just the florist," a bridesmaid whispered, tiptoeing to open the door. But before she could turn the knob, Shadow lunged forward, planting himself between Emma and the entrance. His growl deepened, warning, commanding, protective. "Shadow!" Emma called sharply. The dog froze, waiting. Emma stepped around him, swallowed hard, and cracked open the door. The florist stood there, startled. "Everything okay?" "Yes," Emma said quickly, though her heartbeat was far from steady. Shadow sniffed the air again, tail rigid, body stiff as a statue. Emma gently tugged him back, but he resisted, eyes locked on the hallway as if expecting someone, or something, to appear. "Emma? Maybe he senses stress?" another bridesmaid suggested. "Maybe," she whispered, though she knew better. Shadow wasn't reacting to stress. He was detecting something real, something present, and something he desperately wanted her to understand. As Emma closed the door, Shadow pressed his head into her palm, an action not of affection, but of reassurance. A silent message. Stay close. Don't trust this moment. Something isn't right. By late morning, the guests began arriving at the church. Emma peeked out the window as cars pulled up one by one, each carrying familiar faces, warm greetings, and congratulatory smiles. Bridesmaids fluttered around her, adjusting veils and checking bouquets. Everything looked perfect. Everything except Shadow. His tension had not eased. If anything, it had sharpened. When Emma's soon-to-be mother-in-law entered the bridal room, Shadow reacted instantly. He stepped forward, blocking Emma with a controlled but unmistakably defensive stance. His gaze fixed on the woman as though she carried something he didn't trust. "Oh," the woman gasped, hand flying to her chest. "Why is he behaving like that? He looks ready to attack." "He's not attacking," Emma said quickly. "He's just alert today." Her explanation did nothing to soften the woman's expression. She watched Shadow with thinly veiled discomfort, clutching her purse tighter than necessary. Moments later, the groom's brother Daniel walked in holding a small black box. Shadow's reaction was even more intense. His ears flattened, his growl deepened, and he stepped forward with authority, blocking Daniel completely. "Whoa! What's his problem?" Daniel snapped, taking a step back. "Call someone to remove him. He's unpredictable." Emma felt her stomach tighten. Shadow wasn't unpredictable. Ever. "Shadow, back," she commanded. The dog obeyed, but reluctantly, inch by inch, his eyes never leaving Daniel. Daniel's jaw tightened. "You can't have that dog ruining the ceremony. If he's aggressive, someone could get hurt." "He won't hurt anyone," Emma replied, though doubt flickered inside her. She watched Daniel carefully. He seemed uneasy, sweaty, restless. His fingers tapped the box in his hand like they couldn't stay still. When their eyes met, he forced a stiff smile. "Just nerves," he said, even though Emma hadn't asked. But Shadow didn't buy it for a second. As Daniel left the room, Shadow moved to the door, sniffed the air, and let out a low whine, a sound Emma had heard only once before, right before Shadow uncovered explosives during a police operation. Her heart skipped a beat. The bridesmaids exchanged glances. "Emma, that's the alert sound, right?" one whispered. Emma swallowed hard. "Yes, but that was a long time ago. Shadow's probably confused." But she didn't believe her own words. Not truly. When the groom finally appeared at the door to ask if she was ready, Shadow planted himself in front of Emma again, growling so quietly it was nearly a vibration. The groom froze, eyes widening in shock. "Emma, what's wrong with your dog?" "I don't know," she whispered. But she did know. Shadow wasn't reacting to nothing. Shadow was reacting to someone. The church hall buzzed with soft music and chatter as the final minutes before the ceremony ticked away. Bridesmaids hurried to take their places, and Emma took one last breath to steady herself. She tried to push aside Shadow's strange behavior, reminding herself that nothing bad could possibly happen today. But the moment she stepped into the church foyer, Shadow stiffened again, so abruptly that Emma stumbled. "Shadow, easy," she whispered, gripping his collar. His nose was pointed toward a small table where guest gifts were being arranged. A new package had just been placed there, wrapped in silver paper with an elegant white ribbon. It should have looked beautiful. But something about it made Shadow growl, deep and low, like thunder rolling beneath the ground. Emma's skin prickled. "Whose gift is that?" The co-usher shrugged. "It just arrived a minute ago. Delivery guy said it was for the bride." "For me?" Emma frowned. "From who?" "No card," the usher said. "But people do surprise gifts at weddings all the time." Shadow didn't agree. He lunged toward the table, teeth bared, not to bite but to pull Emma back. His nails scraped the tile as he dug in, refusing to let her step closer to the wrapped box. Guests turned their heads as murmurs spread across the room. "What is wrong with that dog? Why is he acting like that? Is something dangerous?" Emma's heartbeat thudded painfully in her ears. "Shadow, enough," she commanded, trying to keep her voice calm, but he wouldn't budge. He kept staring at the gift box, tail stiff, every muscle locked in warning. The groom's brother, Daniel, quickly approached when he saw the commotion. His eyes darted to the silver-wrapped package, then to Shadow, then back again. His reaction was too sharp, too startled, before he forced a casual tone. "It's just a present," Daniel said. "Dogs get weird around new objects." Shadow's growl deepened. The usher reached toward the gift, intending to move it away from the table, but Shadow lunged forward and barked so loudly the entire hall fell silent. The man stumbled back, pale. "What the—" "Your dog is out of control." Emma grabbed Shadow's collar firmly, her hands trembling. This wasn't a simple protective moment. Shadow was alerting with precision. This was the same barking posture he used when detecting dangerous items during police operations. Emma turned to Daniel. "Why'd you react like that?" He froze. "Like what? I didn't react." But Shadow's glare was locked onto him, unwavering. Emma slowly pulled Shadow away, but her mind was spinning. If Shadow sensed something inside that gift, someone didn't want this wedding to happen, and they wanted to send a message before she even walked down the aisle. The music began softly, gentle piano keys drifting through the church like warm light. Guests rose to their feet, turning expectantly toward the entrance. Cameras lifted, smiles formed, and a collective hush settled over the room. It was time. Emma inhaled deeply and adjusted her veil. Despite the tension of the morning, despite Shadow's relentless warnings, she stepped forward. This moment, this walk, was supposed to be perfect. She told herself she deserved at least that. Shadow stayed glued to her side. Not a step ahead, not a step behind. Exactly aligned with her, body tense, eyes scanning the pews. Several guests whispered nervously as he passed, but Emma ignored them. She trusted him more than anyone in that room. The tall church doors opened and sunlight spilled in. Emma stepped into the aisle, her dress shimmering with every breath she took. The groom stood at the altar with a practiced smile, watching her approach. But as Emma walked closer, a strange unease prickled beneath her skin. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Shadow seemed to notice it too. His ears flattened slightly, and his nose twitched sharply as if catching a scent no one else could detect. Yet he kept his pace steady, though Emma could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. People sighed at the beauty of the moment. Some dabbed tears from their eyes. The scene looked picture-perfect, but Emma felt anything but safe. She noticed Daniel near the front row. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't watching her. He was watching Shadow, intensely, nervously, like the dog held a secret that could destroy everything. Halfway down the aisle, Shadow suddenly slowed. Emma glanced down, confused. "Shadow, come on," she whispered. But he didn't move. Instead, he looked ahead, straight at the groom, his amber eyes narrowing, his body stiffening in a way Emma knew too well. A warning, a threat detected. Her steps faltered. Guests exchanged confused whispers as the music continued, unaware of the silent battle unfolding between dog and groom. Shadow let out one short, sharp breath, almost a suppressed growl. Emma followed his gaze, and for the first time she noticed something off about the groom's posture. He kept one hand close to his suit jacket pocket, fingers twitching as though guarding something. Shadow moved 1 inch forward, muscles coiled like springs. Emma's heart pounded. This wasn't cold feet. This wasn't nerves. Shadow sensed danger, and she was walking straight toward it. Emma was only 10 steps away from the altar when Shadow suddenly stopped altogether. His paws planted firmly on the glossy church floor, claws slightly scraping as he braced himself. Emma tugged gently on his leash, but Shadow refused to move. "Shadow, what are you doing?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Guests leaned forward, confused murmurs filling the silence that the music struggled to cover. Then, Shadow stepped in front of Emma, blocked her path, stood between her and the groom like a living shield. A collective gasp rippled through the church. "Is he stopping her?" someone whispered. "Why would he do that?" another murmured. The groom's smile faltered. "Emma," he said softly, "tell your dog to move. This is our moment." But Shadow wasn't listening. His body lowered into a defensive stance, muscles tight, ears pinned forward. His eyes locked onto the groom, not with anger, but with raw, focused urgency. A warning, a message, a silent scream only Emma understood. "Shadow, heel," Emma commanded quietly. He didn't budge. Instead, he growled. Not loud, but deep enough to make every hair on Emma's arms stand. She had heard this growl only during raids when he sensed a threat no human could see. Never, not once, had he directed it toward someone she loved. The groom raised both hands slowly, as if calming a frightened animal. "Emma." "He's confused. Please, make him stop." But Emma noticed something the guests couldn't from their seats. His left hand, still near his jacket pocket, was trembling. Not with fear, with restraint. Shadow noticed, too. He stepped closer to Emma, nudging her back, positioning himself directly between her and the groom. Daniel, seated beside the front pew, stood abruptly. "That dog needs to be taken out," he shouted. "He's out of control." Shadow snapped his head toward Daniel with a sharp bark, startling half the guests. Daniel froze, face pale as if caught doing something he shouldn't. The music faltered to an awkward halt. Emma's father stepped forward cautiously. "Emma, do you want us to remove him?" Shadow growled again, louder this time. "No!" Emma snapped before anyone could move. Her voice echoed through the church, carried by fear she didn't yet understand. "Nobody touches him." The groom's jaw tensed. "Emma, please, Shadow erupted into a sudden, powerful bark that shook the stained glass windows. Guests recoiled. Some stood in alarm. The groom took a step back. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Shadow wasn't just blocking her. He was protecting her. From what? Emma didn't know. But in that moment, she made a choice she never imagined making on her wedding day. She trusted her dog over her future husband. A stunned silence swallowed the entire church. The guests stood frozen, unsure whether to sit, move, breathe, or run. The soft glow of stained glass windows colored the air with blues and reds, but the scene below was anything but peaceful. Shadow stood rigid, blocking Emma's path, his body angled protectively in front of her. His growls vibrated low and steady, a warning seasoned officers knew better than to ignore. The groom took a cautious step forward. "Emma, he's confused," he said, forcing a smile that didn't match the fear flickering in his eyes. "He doesn't know what's happening. Please, call him off." Emma didn't answer. She couldn't. Her pulse hammered in her ears as she stared at Shadow, trying to understand what he saw, what he sensed that she didn't. Then Daniel stepped forward again, voice sharp. "This is ridiculous. That animal's dangerous." His hand twitched toward the groom instinctively, as if trying to shield him or communicate something silently. Shadow reacted instantly. He lunged one quick step, barking with explosive force. Daniel stumbled back, tripping over the pew and falling into the seat behind him. Gasps filled the room. "Emma, do something!" the groom demanded, panic cracking through his voice. Emma stood still, gripping her bouquet so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Shadow has never acted like this without a reason," she whispered. Her father quietly approached from behind, palms raised. "Sweetheart, it might be best to calm him down so the ceremony can continue." Shadow snarled at the groom's pocket again, teeth glinting. Emma swallowed hard. Every instinct she'd built over years on the force screamed at her. Shadow is alerting to something. This isn't behavior. This is detection. She took a slow breath. "Dad, don't come closer." Her father froze. The groom's forced smile wavered into visible irritation. "Emma, you're embarrassing us. Everyone is staring. Tell the dog to heel." Emma met his eyes, and for the first time since the engagement, something felt wrong. Off. Cold. "What's in your pocket?" she asked. The groom blinked. "What?" "Nothing. My vows, my—" "Show me." Her voice carried through the church like a command, steady and sharp. The groom's jaw clenched. Shadow growled again, louder. Daniel interjected quickly. "He doesn't need to show anything. You're letting a dog ruin—" "Daniel," Emma cut him off, "sit down." Her tone, calm, authoritative, made half the guests flinch. The groom hesitated. Shadow barked again, short, urgent, unmistakably deliberate. The groom's face paled, and in that moment, Emma realized. Shadow wasn't losing control. He was moments away from exposing something the groom desperately didn't want revealed. A heavy silence settled over the church, thick enough to suffocate the air itself. Guests stared in frozen confusion, some clutching their seats, others whispering urgently behind trembling hands. Emma stood in the aisle, her breath shallow, heart pounding in her ears. Shadow didn't move. He stood like a stone wall in front of her, protective, unmoving, unblinking. His tail was rigid, his body angled slightly sideways, a posture Emma knew too well. Shadow wasn't preparing to attack. He was preparing to intercept. His nose twitched rapidly, inhaling short, sharp bursts of air. He lowered his head, ears locked forward, body trembling with tension. Then he did something Emma had seen only during high-risk police operations. He lifted a paw. A signal. Her blood went cold. "Shadow," she breathed, barely audible. He placed the paw back down, then leaned forward, stretching his neck toward the groom's suit jacket pocket. His nostrils flared. A deep growl vibrated from inside his chest, a sound so primal that the nearest guests instinctively leaned back. "Emma, get your dog under control," the groom said, voice cracking. "He's scaring everyone." But Emma didn't look at the groom. She looked at his hand, the same hand he kept pressed against his jacket, the same place Shadow was focused on, the same spot Shadow had signaled toward. "What's in your pocket?" Emma whispered. The groom stiffened. "What? Nothing. My vows. My vows are in here." But Shadow didn't respond to vows. He didn't react to paper. He reacted to danger. Real danger. Daniel stood from his seat again, panic etched across his face. "Emma, he's ruining everything. Call someone to remove that animal now." Shadow jerked toward Daniel with another sharp bark, more precise this time, as if warning him specifically. Daniel immediately stepped back, tripping slightly into the pew, his expression cracking with something dangerously close to fear. Emma turned toward him. "Why is he reacting to you? Why earlier too? What is going on?" Daniel opened his mouth to answer, but Shadow ignored him suddenly. The dog's head whipped back toward the groom. His ears shot up. His muscles trembled. His eyes, sharpened with laser-focused alertness. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, Shadow pressed his body backward into Emma, pushing her, urging her to step behind him. Emma gasped. Shadow wasn't just warning her now, he was positioning her for protection. From the groom. The groom's face paled as Emma stared at him, her chest tightening with a fear she could no longer ignore. "Shadow," she whispered, "what are you sensing?" And then, Shadow barked a single, explosive bark, a signal. The truth was seconds from breaking loose. Shadow's explosive bark echoed through the church like a crack of thunder. Guests flinched. A baby cried. Someone whispered, "Call security." But no one dared to move, not with the police dog rigid, growling, and laser-focused on the groom. Emma's pulse hammered beneath her skin. Shadow stepped forward, inch by inch, head low, nose pointed toward the groom's suit pocket. His growls deepened, vibrating across the church floor. The message was clear. There was something on the groom that shouldn't be there. The groom lifted his hands defensively. "Everyone just calm down. This is getting blown out of proportion." But his voice shook. Shadow barked again, snapping the groom out of his false composure. The groom staggered back, hitting the altar rail. The room erupted in whispers. What is he hiding? Did he bring something dangerous? Why is the dog only reacting to him? Emma stepped forward slowly, her hands trembling. "Show us your pocket." The groom's eyes darted, to Emma, to Shadow, to Daniel. Daniel looked away. The groom swallowed hard, panic widening his eyes. "Emma, you know me. I would never hurt you. Please, stop this." Shadow lunged, not to bite but to block Emma from stepping closer. His body slammed gently but firmly into her legs, pushing her backward again. He wasn't letting her near the groom. That terrified her more than anything. "Empty your pocket," Emma said, louder this time, voice echoing. "I said it's just my vows." "Then show them." For a moment he didn't move. That was enough. Shadow erupted into a fierce, warning bark and the groom's hand jerked instinctively toward the pocket. Too fast, too frantic. Gasps burst across the church. Two guests dove aside. Emma's stomach dropped. Shadow shot forward like lightning. He seized the groom's wrist not with a bite but with a controlled police maneuver, forcing the hand away from the pocket. The groom yelped, stumbling. The object he'd been gripping slipped out and hit the floor with a metallic clatter. The sound froze the entire world. A small device lay at the groom's feet. Black. Sharp-edged. Illegal. Dangerous. Emma's blood ran cold. "That's not vows," she whispered, voice cracking. The groom's face drained of color. "Emma, listen. I can explain." But Shadow growled louder than ever, positioning himself between Emma and the device. Daniel suddenly grabbed the groom's arm. "Why didn't you get rid of it? I told you." His words died on his tongue. Every head turned toward him. Emma stared in disbelief. "You knew?" she whispered. Daniel froze like a man caught in headlights. Shadow barked again, directly at both brothers. The hidden threat was no longer a secret, and the wedding had just turned into a crime scene. The church had gone silent. So silent Emma could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. The metallic device lay on the floor like a dark stain on what should have been the happiest day of her life. Shadow stood guard over it, teeth bared, chest rising and falling with deadly focus. Emma's gaze slowly lifted from the device to the man she was supposed to marry. "Tell me what that is," she whispered, voice trembling. The groom swallowed hard, glancing at Daniel as if begging for help. Daniel didn't move. Shadow growled again, a deep, unforgiving sound that left no room for lies. The groom opened his mouth, but no words came out. Emma took a shaky step forward. "You promised me honesty. You promised me a future. What were you planning to bring into our marriage? What were you hiding in your suit on our wedding day?" His shoulders slumped, a tiny shiver running through him. "Emma, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I wasn't going to use it, I swear." "That's not an answer. It's protection," he said hurriedly. "Just protection. Nothing illegal." Shadow barked sharply as if calling out the lie. Emma's stomach twisted. "Protection from who?" she demanded. "From what?" The groom hesitated again. Too long. "There are people I owe money to," he finally said. "People who threatened to show up today. I was scared, Emma. I didn't want them ruining the wedding." Emma stared at him. "That's not protection," she said quietly. "That's fear. And that device isn't something a normal person carries just in case." His lips trembled. "I didn't know what else to do." "Tell me the truth," she said, voice cracking. "All of it." Shadow lowered his stance, inching forward, urging Emma to see what he'd sensed from the beginning. The groom's breath shuddered. "I got involved in something years ago. Something stupid. I owed the wrong people. They wanted leverage. They told me if I ever backed out they would come after me, and anyone close to me." Emma's blood ran cold. "So you brought a weapon to our wedding?" He nodded, shame coloring his face. "I just wanted to protect you." Emma felt tears burn the back of her eyes, not from sadness but betrayal. "You couldn't protect me by lying to me. And you couldn't protect me from the danger you created." Daniel stepped back, guilt flooding his expression. "Emma, we didn't mean—" But Shadow cut him off with a thunderous bark. Emma stepped away from both brothers, her breath shaking. "You were never trying to protect me," she whispered. "You were bringing danger straight to me." Emma's veil trembled as a cold draft drifted through the silent church. She stood, frozen in the aisle, surrounded by flowers, candles, and the weight of a truth she never imagined facing on her wedding day. Shadow remained beside her, rigid, alert, utterly unwavering. He wasn't just protecting her now, he was preparing for a fight. The groom took a desperate step forward. "Emma, please. Listen to me. I was scared. I made mistakes, but I was trying to fix them. This wedding, us, that was supposed to be my fresh start." Shadow lunged forward with a warning bark, stopping him mid-step. Emma's voice cracked. "A fresh start built on lies? On danger you were hiding until the moment I said, 'I do'?" The groom winced as if struck. "I was going to tell you, just not today. Not like this." Emma shook her head. "Shadow knew before I did. He sensed everything you tried to hide." Daniel stepped closer, raising his hands as if offering peace. "Emma, it's not as bad as it looks. That device, it was just insurance, a bluff. No one was going to get hurt. Shadow snapped his head toward Daniel, teeth bared, growling low and fierce. Daniel's voice died instantly. A ripple of fear moved through the guests. Emma's eyes hardened. If it was harmless, why would Shadow react like this? He's trained to detect risk, danger, deception. He's never once been wrong. The groom's composure cracked. "I didn't want to lose you," he whispered. "I thought if I told you everything, you'd walk away." "And you thought bringing a weapon to our wedding would make me stay?" Emma replied, voice trembling with disbelief. Shadow nudged her leg gently, grounding her. Daniel's facade crumbled. "Emma, they were supposed to show up today, to collect. If they didn't get what they wanted, they might have done something. We were trying to stay ahead of them." The room filled with gasps. Emma's eyes widened, horror sinking in. "So you didn't just bring danger here, you invited it." The groom's breathing quickened. "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," she whispered. "But you didn't choose me. You chose fear." Shadow growled again, louder now, pushing Emma back another step as the groom reached for her, desperate. "Emma, don't do this." Shadow erupted into a thunderous bark, stopping him cold. Emma wiped a tear from her cheek. "This wedding is over." Her voice echoed across the church, final and unbreakable. "And Shadow just saved my life from the man I thought I loved." For a moment, the church was frozen in stunned silence. Emma's declaration echoed through the vaulted space, ringing off the stained-glass windows. The groom stood pale and speechless. Daniel's face twitched with panic. Guests clutched each other, their whispers sharp with fear. But Shadow didn't relax. His growls didn't fade. His posture didn't soften. If anything, he grew more tense. Emma noticed instantly. "Shadow, what is it now?" The dog's eyes weren't on the groom anymore. They were locked on someone else. Slowly, Shadow turned his head toward the back of the church, toward an elderly guest sitting quietly in a dark suit, someone no one had paid much attention to all morning, someone who wasn't invited. The man lifted his gaze at the exact moment Shadow barked, one single explosive bark that made every soul in the room jump. "Who is that?" Emma whispered. The groom's face drained of all color. His breathing hitched. "Emma, don't look at him. Please, don't." But it was too late. Shadow lunged a step forward, positioning himself between Emma and the mysterious man. His tail stiffened. His eyes burned with recognition, the same intense, lethal focus he had displayed during live. Operations. The man in the back row stood slowly, adjusting his coat with eerie calm. "Well," he said with a quiet smile, "it seems your dog is smarter than you." The groom stumbled backward. You shouldn't be here." "Oh, I told you I'd attend," the man said softly. "A wedding is such a sentimental place to settle debts." Gasps rippled through the church. Emma's heart dropped. "You're the one threatening him." The man turned his attention to her. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Threatening? No, dear. I simply keep my word. Your fiancé owes a great deal, and I don't appreciate when people try to run from responsibility." Shadow snarled, stepping closer. The man raised one eyebrow. "Ah, the famous K9 partner. I've heard of dogs like him, dogs who sense guilt before it's spoken." Daniel suddenly stepped forward, shaking. "Please, we can still settle this. Don't do anything here." The man laughed softly. "Oh, Daniel. Still, protecting your brother, even after he dragged you into this mess?" Emma stared between them, realization crashing over her like ice-cold water. You too weren't just scared. You were being hunted. Shadow barked again, longer, fiercer, snapping Emma back to reality. The man's hand was now inside his coat. Guests screamed. Emma took a step back as Shadow crouched, ready to strike. The real danger wasn't just the groom. It had finally stepped out of the shadows. The man's hand slid deeper into his coat, and the church erupted into chaos. Guests screamed and ducked behind pews, mothers shielding their children, elderly guests trembling as they crouched low. The soft glow of candles flickered violently as panic rippled through the room. But Shadow didn't flinch. He stepped forward, silent, focused, fearless. Emma froze, breath caught in her throat. "Shadow, no." Before she finished the sentence, the man whipped out a compact weapon, glinting under the church lights. Emma gasped, stumbling back, but Shadow was already moving. He launched himself into the air with explosive speed. A blur of fur, a flash of teeth, a roar of courage. Shadow struck the man's arm with perfect precision, knocking the weapon out of his hand before a single shot could be fired. It clattered across the floor, spinning beneath the pews. The man yelled in pain as the dog tackled him to the ground. Guests screamed again, but this time in shock, not fear. Shadow pinned the man down, snarling, jaws inches from the man's throat. The villain tried to shove him off, but Shadow tightened his grip, forcing him against the hardwood floor with a trained, unbreakable hold. The groom rushed forward, hands shaking. "Don't hurt him. He'll retaliate. Shadow, get off." Emma grabbed his arm. "Don't you dare interfere. He's saving all of us." The groom flinched, guilt consuming him. Daniel stumbled backward, falling into a pew as Shadow growled again, keeping the man immobilized. Two guests, former military, rushed forward to help hold the attacker down. "Call the police," someone yelled. "I already did," another replied, voice shaking. Emma approached slowly, heart pounding, every step trembling with fear and awe. Shadow's eyes flicked up at her just long enough for her to understand. He had everything under control. The man beneath him spat bitterly. "You think this ends today? You think you can run from this?" Shadow snarled, pressing down harder until the man winced. Emma lifted her chin, forcing strength into her voice. "No one is running. Not anymore." Sirens wailed in the distance. Footsteps thundered as responding officers burst into the church moments later. They took one look at the scene, Shadow pinning a dangerous criminal, a weapon on the floor, terrified guests, and immediately restrained the man. Shadow finally stepped back, chest heaving, but eyes still sharp, making sure the threat was truly gone. The entire church seemed to exhale. Emma knelt beside him, wrapping her trembling arms around his neck. "Shadow, you saved every single one of us." The dog closed his eyes and leaned into her embrace, tail finally giving a small relieved wag. Emma looked around at the shaken faces, the stunned groom, the broken pieces of her wedding day. But she felt only gratitude. Shadow hadn't ruined anything. He had saved everything. The flashing red and blue lights outside the church painted streaks across the stained glass windows, turning the once sacred space into a scene of investigation. Officers moved quickly, securing the weapon, escorting shaken guests outside, and questioning the groom and Daniel separately. Shadow stayed by Emma's side the entire time, alert, calm, unwavering. The moment the threat was gone, he had melted back into quiet vigilance, his eyes following every movement around her. Emma stood in the aisle, her dress slightly torn, veil crooked, hair loosened from the chaos. But none of that mattered. She felt strangely grounded, as if Shadow's presence alone kept her standing. A detective approached her gently. "Ma'am, your K-9 partner prevented something catastrophic today. That man was armed and carrying a list of targets. Your wedding was never his goal. It was leverage." Emma's breath caught. "He came for him," she whispered, glancing toward the groom. The detective nodded grimly. "Your fiancé owed a criminal organization a substantial debt. They planned to use today as pressure. Your dog sensed the threat long before any of us did." Emma looked down at Shadow. His eyes were soft now, tail giving a slow, comforting wag. "You tried to warn me from the start, didn't you?" she whispered. Shadow pressed his head gently against her hand. As officers led the elderly man away in cuffs, he turned back with a glare that sent a chill down her spine. "You would have been safe if he'd done what he was told," he snarled toward the groom. Emma stepped closer to Shadow instinctively. The groom's face crumpled in shame. "Emma, I never wanted you to be hurt. I thought I could handle it," he said, voice shaking. She shook her head slowly. "You didn't just risk my life. You risked every single person in this church, and you kept me blind to the danger." Daniel wiped tears from his eyes. "We were going to fix it after the ceremony. We just didn't make it in time." Emma looked at both brothers. The fear, the guilt, the consequences of secrets they thought they could outrun. "Shadow knew," she said quietly. "He always knows." She knelt beside the dog, lifting his face gently in her hands. "Thank you for saving me. For saving all of us." For the first time that day, Shadow fully relaxed, his posture softening as he leaned into her, allowing himself a moment of peace. Emma exhaled slowly, the weight of everything settling over her. Her wedding had fallen apart, but her life had been saved. The church had emptied, leaving behind scattered petals, overturned programs, and the echo of a day that had taken a turn no one could have predicted. Emma stood near the altar, her dress still trembling around her ankles, the weight of everything finally sinking in. Shadow sat beside her, calm and steady, as if reminding her she wasn't alone. Not for a single moment. A gentle breeze drifted in through the open doors, carrying away the last traces of chaos. The world outside was quiet again, safe again, because of him. Emma ran her fingers through Shadow's fur, grounding herself. "You were right from the beginning," she whispered. "You were trying to protect me, even when I didn't want to see it." Shadow lifted his head, eyes warm as if telling her he'd do it all again. Every bark, every growl, every moment of defiance, just to keep her safe. Her parents approached cautiously, worry etched on their faces. "Sweetheart," her mother said softly, "we're just grateful you're alive." Emma nodded, tears filling her eyes, not from heartbreak but from overwhelming relief. "I almost walked into a life built on lies," she said. "Shadow saved me from more than danger. He saved me from a future that would have destroyed me." Outside, police cars pulled away. The groom and Daniel were driven off in separate vehicles, their futures uncertain. Emma watched without bitterness, only clarity. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it also frees. A bridesmaid approached quietly. "Emma, I know today didn't go the way you imagined." Emma let out a breath, steady and full. "It didn't," she agreed, "but maybe it went the way it needed to." Shadow nudged her hand gently, a soft, comforting gesture. Emma straightened her shoulders. "This isn't the end of anything," she said. "It's the beginning of something better, something honest, something safe." She looked around the church. Once, filled with fear, now reclaiming its peace, and felt a calm she hadn't expected. Shadow stood, tail wagging slowly, as if knowing what came next. Emma smiled through her tears. "Come on, boy. Let's go start our real life. The one we choose, not the one built on secrets." Shadow barked softly, falling into step beside her, his protective presence steady as a heartbeat. They walked out of the church together, bride and canine partner, into the sunlight of a new beginning. And in that moment, Emma knew one thing for certain. Shadow wasn't just a police dog. He was her guardian, her truth-teller, her angel in fur.